Hey, I'm Mr. Prince. Some of you know me, some of you do not. For the people that know me, hi class, good to see you. For the people that do not know me, uh, hi, nice to meet you, or nice for you to meet me. We're going over a couple learning targets today, but don't worry, this is going to be really fun stuff. How is this going to be fun? Because this is all the content we're throwing in your face, and then you just finish researching and showing off your neighborhood, your Minneapolis neighborhood. That's so exciting. We're going over 3C and 3D today. Get a good look at those learning targets. Pause it if you'd like to read it. I'm going to give you layman's terms for what these things are. 3C, we're talking about transportation. 3D, we're talking about suburbanization and urbanization. Y'all basically live in a suburb, so we're kind of talking about you. You're going to relate to a lot of this stuff. We're going to be talking about urbanization, and it's one of the most fun places to go in Minnesota, which is Minneapolis. St. Paul would have a word with me if they could. And then we're also going to stay tuned. We're going to find out, did good old Mr. Prince gentrify? Stay tuned. Did I gentrify? It sounds like a bad word, and it could be to some of you, but it could be a good word to some of you. Let's move on. Changes to cities. First thing I wanted to talk about, let's look at racial covenants. We've talked about this before, yes? I wanted to show you a map zoomed out a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't have Blaine out here, so we can't see how racist Blaine was back in the day. But feel free to pause if you'd like to read this text box. If you forgot what a racial covenant is, I highly suggest pausing right now, and welcome back. So what we're going to be talking about here is, why doesn't Minneapolis have a lot of racial covenants? Why doesn't Minneapolis have a lot of racial covenants? Very curious. I want you to answer that. Why do you think urban areas don't have as many racial covenants? So think about the suburbs, and then think about the urban area. So what is more desirable desirable to live in? And could that be a reason? Maybe you have a different reason. Let me know. Hey, welcome back. Isn't that a cool way to have you guys answer a question? Anyways, we're going to talk about some of your reasons throughout this presentation. So back brain pocket that for me, if you would. Check this out. If you didn't know, Minnesota, we have a lot of our population in the metro area. A freaking lot. 60% of them. If you look at the orange line, that's where 60% of our population was in 1990. And if we fast forward to 2014, we squished that whole 60% of portion of people into even a smaller area in Minnesota. We're moving inward. It's happening. You can't do anything about it. We have this thing, even though, yes, we're moving towards the center, we're not all moving into Minneapolis. That would be fun. That'd be like a big party. But what's also happening is people within the core of Minneapolis are also moving outwards to the suburbs, or people that are in rural Minnesota are also moving to the suburbs. So we're not quite gravitating towards Minneapolis per se, but we love these suburbs. Why do we love these suburbs? Let's talk about the definition. It's a shift of population density from urban areas to suburban areas. Okay, so just letting you know, we're more so talking about moving from Minneapolis, St. Paul to the surrounding cities. So this started because of freeways. People can commute to work, and it started happening around 1950s. What allowed this to happen? You guessed it, because you read this. Motor vehicles allowed this thing to happen because cars were so much more common between families. Sick. I can drive further away. And even the government's like, you all should do this because they need more money. They're like, hey, if you guys give us more money, we can build you more roads, and then you can move out to the suburbs. But also, we wanted to keep fuel prices low. It's like a little contest for the U.S. government. Look at how much cheaper our fuel is. Then we also have these problems. So there's a part of our learning target 3D that talks about the environment, and here's that part. So first of all, it's a lot of space, right? We are terraforming the world, especially in metro areas. Terraforming, this isn't just US, this is everywhere, but it's an average of a quarter of the land in a city is just parking, just putting cars somewhere. That's insane. A quarter of the land. And then it creates pollution and congestion. Yucky. So you're in traffic longer and you're burning more fossil fuels in the process. If you didn't know, fossil fuels cause global warming. We'll talk more. Then technological innovations, they're being helped to prevent these. So we have more fuel efficient vehicles. We have better light cycles. So maybe you get stopped at a lot of red lights needlessly. Oh my gosh, on university on my way to Blaine High School, that needs to be fixed. Get me fumed, people. I'm going to put myself right in the middle. Yeah, there we go. The suburban sprawl. So people moving from cities into suburbs. This is happening more and more and more, especially today. And this is probably what you guessed earlier. Why do people like the suburbs? Well, this is probably looks similar to what you live in. Maybe not. Maybe not. I lived in an apartment in a suburb, so this doesn't exactly fit. But for some of you, this will fit. Why do people do this? They get at their own house. Number one, first bullet point. They get a yard. They get space to park and several cars. Right. Look at all the space we had compared to the inner city. If you look at this image right here, yeah, we don't have to take up most of our, land to have fun. We're just having cars there. That cars take up a big space. It's not a quarter of the land anymore. We have greater opportunity for home ownership. There's a lot of rental properties in Minneapolis, whereas all the suburbs, you could probably buy a house. And then you get protection from inner city crime and congestion. Oh my gosh, parents are obsessed with that. And I get it. Yes, we need to be safe. But I'm kind of anti this right now because me and my girlfriend, Amy, just moved into a house in near North, which has some pretty high crime and congestion rates. But I love it. I love it. Let me say that. Minneapolis is sweet. We'll talk about it later. But the neighborhood, if anybody has this neighborhood, I'm in the near North neighborhood next to the North Loop. That's why it's called near North. And then proximity also next to North Minneapolis. And then there's proximity to good schools. People want to send their kids to schools that have high graduation rates and they're safe. And, they do a good job. So you're in Blaine. Your parents did a good job. Describe one thing that could be a negative of suburban sprawl. So I just gave you a bunch of examples of positive things. But now think about it on the flip side. What are the bad things of suburban sprawl? So a lot of people, they left the inner city and they're going to these other places. Maybe think about funding. Think about transportation. How could transportation be a bad thing? And think about in terms of the environment with transportation. There's a bunch of examples out there. I'm just trying to get you started. So let me know what you think. Hey, I hope you wrote something good. I can't wait to read it, or one of your teachers to read it. Where can I put myself here? I'll put myself right on Hanson Boulevard and Highway 10. Maybe you guys got one of these costs. Let's talk about this. So maybe you said something like, well, we got to have more roads and then the utilities have to be extended. So this water from the central place now has to go even further. Electricity has to go further. We got to build more, power lines, water veins, water mains. And then we have higher fuel consumption. I bet a lot of you guys got this one. We got to spend more gas to get places now. The average commuter time right now is like 40 minutes. 40 minutes of a vehicle, that's a lot of carbon being emitted into the atmosphere times hundreds of millions of people that commute to work from the suburbs. And then sites lie fallow. What does this mean? It just means that. So if you see this brown area right here, this is no longer arable. We cannot farm or produce things or you have some kind of productive growth in this area. Maybe y'all are familiar with this intersection. Anyways, and then we got to spend more on these services for these new developments. All right, government's probably not getting a sweet deal on some of this stuff from the people they contract out. If you didn't know that, the government doesn't just have construction companies. They contract out to private construction companies with our tax revenue. Then segregation. So if maybe one of you said this, and I'd be very proud if you said this, because historical injustices, they last. Historical injustices last generation to generation. I have about the same life as my dad, and my dad had about the same life as my grandpa, and we're not, very well off, but we're not doing too bad either. Okay. So I can think like probably 6 or 7 generations. My family's been about the same wealth wise, right? Position in society wise. So historical injustices, they last. What if your family started off on the wrong foot? Slavery, and then the years and decades of discrimination after that, just keeping you down if you had to deal with that, and you couldn't accumulate wealth, and that just progresses through decades and decades and decades. Next thing we know, we're to 2020. We're at 2020, and the income levels most likely are about the same. If we're going to look at families and their progression, income levels are about the same. Next thing you know, some families can afford to leave the city with all its negatives, and some families can't, so they're stuck there. Remember those racial covenants we saw earlier on? How there wasn't a lot of racial covenants in the inner city? It seems almost intentful. Would you agree? Next thing we know, we have income levels segregated. We are in almost as a segregated time as we used to be. Schools are almost as segregated as they used to be because housing is as segregated as it used to be. So we just further the segregation because of suburban sprawl. So what's an alternative? What's happening in the inner city? Well, we have this awesome thing called public transit. There's a lot of stuff. Minnesota is freaking sweet because we have a light rail. The green and blue lines, if you all have ever been on that, maybe you're getting to like a Vikings game at US Bank Stadium. Maybe you're just going around Nicollet Mall. University of Minnesota, I use that a lot at U of M. It's sweet. Let me move this so you can see that bus a little better. Ooh. But it's better suited for large cities. Let's be cognizant of that. There's not going to be a bus leaving every single minute from Blaine to Minneapolis. There's not a high of a demand for that. But inner city, y'all can take a bus for public transit. Y'all can take a light rail for public transit. And there's also a bunch of private options. Lyft, Uber, you can get one like every 2 minutes. You can get one coming to your place wherever you are. And it's cheaper if we do mass transit. If we have 40 people driving 40 cars, it's pretty expensive. If you have 40 people in one bus, pretty inexpensive. So we're also polluting less, more energy efficient. A lot of buses are going electric now, and it's expanding rapidly in the U.S., especially urban areas. There are some downsides to cities. That's a good thing, but here's some bad things. We have this cycle called decline and renewal. It happens all the time. Cities are always they're always declining, but then they get renewed, and this it could be kind of a controversial term, and we'll talk about that in a second. But decline, what's happening in decline? Well, inner city, they have some challenges. Sometimes they don't have people with the adequate job skills to fill a position. There's a lot of poverty there, right? If they're all being pushed into one area, and we're pushing all of these poverty-stricken people into one area, and they have to maybe commit a crime to survive, or they went to crappy schools and they just don't know any better, then we start this vicious cycle. Maybe a lot of people start going homeless because maybe they don't even want to commit crimes, or maybe they're committing crimes and they're really bad at it. But most homeless people are not criminals. They have just been, as I've talked about, they got the raw end of the stick. And next slide, we're going to talk about what happened. Like, is it really all their fault? We'll talk. And then we get deteriorated housing because people can't keep up, and then we get areas that look like this. So here's an example of a city in decay or decline. So urban decay, city falls into disrepair because of pollution, decline, poverty, you name it. So Eminem, if y'all Marshall Mathers fans, it's a great motor city. Detroit, Michigan. I'm recording this while Michigan is a swing state. So they could be deciding the election results right now. This will be interesting to watch in retrospect. Anyways, we get rundown buildings, rundown public transit areas, rundown entertainment centers, warehouse districts, residential districts. Doesn't look fun, but they will have a renewal cycle soon. So if that makes you feel better, I'm going to cover that question up for now because we don't need it. But so I'm showing you this slide because I'm showing you that it's not all people who got the raw end of the stick's fault. Check this out. 1968, minimum wage. All this is adjusted for inflation, so it all is the same value. 1968, minimum wage, you made about $21,000 a year, almost $22,000 a year. Fast forward to 2009, it goes down. And I'll tell you why that's really scary in a second. $18,000 a year. Today, 2019, it's $15,000 a year. So we're making about $7,000 less on average than we were making in 1968. The US is the richest country in the frickin' world, and our GDP has grown enormously since then. We have been very productive, and many people have gotten rich in the US. Why aren't the workers making more money? Discussion for another day. I just want to let you know this is not just those people's fault. This is out of their control. They're not getting paid as much when a lot would say maybe they should be. 1975 cost of stuff. So cost of living skyrockets, wages go down. That doesn't make any sense. We get less money for more expensive stuff. 1975, again, adjusted for inflation, new house, about $210,000. Today, it's $60,000 more, and we're making less. Median income goes down, and we're making less. Median income. And new cars, they almost double. They probably have doubled by now. It's 2019. New cars double in price since 1975, and we're making less. College, this is a funny figure because it's probably 3 times more than it was back then. I can attest to that. I'm in a lot of debt. I'm probably going to be paying this off for most of my life. Can't wait. Anyways, I'm getting paid less, and I have to pay more for college. You guys will too. Have fun with that. Private college, even more, three-ish times more expensive, sometimes 4. Go to St. Thomas. I dare you to go look at how much that costs for 4 years. And movie tickets, about the same. But look at these things right here. I'm going to move my face now. Look at these things. Gasoline and milk. Essentials, right? How come these are cheaper? Here's another thing to add to our environmental aspect really quick. Milk, gasoline, few essentials that have become cheaper. Whoa, sweet, right? But they're also main contributors of global warming. So usually companies have to pay more money to make something more sustainable or to be more ethical about what they do. But what companies are doing nowadays is they are not picking up the tab. So in 70 years from now, if, we're already on the verge of an apocalypse with global warming, the temperature rises on average 2 more degrees. It's irreversible, 2 more degrees. So what's going to happen in 70 years? You guys are still going to be alive. You're going to be paying for this thing. We're going to have to do some mass worldwide scale cleanup to avoid an apocalypse. So the tab, you're not paying a lot now for gas and milk, but you're going to be paying a lot more in 50 years. I'll be the first one to say that. Okay. Let's go right here now. Ooh. So this renewal thing, remember we talked about decline. Now we have this renewal phase, gentrification. So middle-class people move into deteriorated inner city neighborhoods and renovate the housing. After I tell you what this is, then I can tell you my answer if Mr. Prince gentrified or not. So reasons: larger housing, closer place to work, right? We can get bigger houses for cheaper because not a lot of people want to live in the city. They want to go to the suburbs. We have proximity to amenities. And this is usually single and childless couples. That's me and Amy. Makes sense, right? This is a link. Download these slides if you like and click it. I want you to give me an example of urban decline. You're going to choose which example is urban decline. Then you're going to choose which example is urban renewal, aka gentrification. Let me know. Hey, did you get it? I hope so. I bet you did. You're smart. I'm so proud of you. If you didn't, you're still smart. You're going to get it. Gentrification video clip. Click this if you'd like. It's a kind of little parody, but I don't want to, we don't have time for that. So please watch it. It's funny, and it talks about gentrification things. It's a Full House clip. So if you guys ever watch Full House. But I'm going to put a link on your screen right now. So please watch this video, and then you're going to answer a question. Okay, so watch this video, and you're going to answer this question. Okay, so keep this in mind while you watch. See you in a sec. Hey. So after watching that, you were asked, do you think gentrification is a good thing or a bad thing? I'm going to show you a slide about the good things and the bad things. Maybe you said something similar. Let's see. So we have some pros and cons of gentrification. So for pros, this is a great thing. You can get, as an individual, you get a bigger home. The home values of that area go up. That's usually a good sign for a neighborhood. That probably means there's going to be less crime, yada, yada. And then you're closer to amenities, especially entertainment. If you're in the city, a lot of entertainment stuff to do, whether it's, nightclubs. I like saying nightclubs, nightlife. Yes. Movie theaters, restaurants, attracts more businesses. That's one really great way to bolster an economy. There's cons though, as you saw in that video. So rent goes up. Remember that dude said he was paying his family is paying $800 for renting that house. Somebody snags it, sells it for 1.3 million. Whoa. Evicts them, I'd say unjustly on top of that. That's a really crappy law that they have. And then higher cost of living. So that means, so on the pros, increased home value is great, right? Well, for people that can't afford it, that's not great. They're forced out, especially if the renters, the people that are renting them a house don't want to do it anymore. And all of a sudden they have to buy this house that they absolutely cannot afford. And it displaces these people who can't afford these inflated costs. There's a link if you'd like to download these slides and go over it. So now here's what I promised you. Did Mr. Prince gentrify? Well, let's see. So if I could go here really quick. You will be doing this later, so don't worry about it. But we have a gentrification map for you. You'll be dealing with this, and your teacher will explain this to you later. But I just want to prove to you. So right here, this is North Loop neighborhood. And this is Near North neighborhood. Did not gentrify. Yes. Didn't gentrify. I'm pretty close though. I'm pretty close to this neighborhood right here. Anyways, that's if middle class people come in and buy the crappy houses and renovate it, and then all the people of lower income get kicked out. Right? Gentrification. Didn't do that. I'm right next to North High School. It's a really nice area. I love it. But there you go. There's your hook, line, and sinker for the end of this. I hope you guys got a lot out of this 3C, 3D stuff. On to bigger, better things. We're going to finish this project. We all now have all the knowledge to succeed. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.